500 pages in this book.
Well, I mean, you bought it, so that's on you now. That's your
I
business.
know. Like, I don't know if you could see, but it's like all folded up. All right, we're live. I'm gonna wait till
what a
there's
way
some
to start a
people on.
stream. Very polarizing there.
I know. Look, I'm dog earing now.
Oh no.
Oh man. It's just 8:03. And I know that the link in, so we're streaming to YouTube and it's live on YouTube, which is really cool because it gets authors the chance to spread it all over the world. And now I've been putting things on Instagram, and I'm starting to gear up my book talk, even though I'm trying really hard to keep my politics when I keep reposting things off of it, but that's hard anyway. So then I started putting all of my promos. They're going to be up on TikTok too. So
nice. I've been unfortunately really not great with my social media stuff lately. I just haven't been posting. Between everything that's going on lately in my personal life and my personal professional life with the other job, it's just been a lot lately, and I had to cut something somewhere, but I'm hoping to get back into it soon. Bare minimum, I am still doing my newsletter. I do a monthly newsletter. If you haven't subscribed to my newsletter, you can do so through my website, emilylankow.com, and it's on the About page. But I do a monthly newsletter, and so even when I'm not necessarily posting regularly on social media, I am always doing updates there about what I'm working on. And there's also lots of exclusive sneak peeks. You get like character art that I'm working on. My last newsletter just got the prologue of book 3 of Fall of the Enclave for free, just for being signed up. So if you're not signed up for my newsletter, I
thought I was, but I'm gonna have to find it, and maybe it went to spam because I haven't seen that, and I would have read it.
Yeah, and another good thing that a lot of people don't know about, but a newsletter is really supposed to be conversational. It is, something you can reply to me directly and chat with me, tell me about, what are you doing this summer? What are you reading right now? What do you love? And it actually helps not only me connect with you guys, but helps the deliverability of newsletters actually show your web service provider, hey, this is something that other people are wanting to get. It's not just spam. So replying actually helps a lot of newsletters not go to spam boxes of other people too.
Well, I'm going to have to go find it, and maybe I'll have to do Bookish Pen Pals and keep reading Kristen, and because there's like a blurry line here going on with social media for me, because it's just easier. It's way too hard for me to post on Bookish Pen Pals Instagram and then keep reading Kristen. And I have 5,400 followers now on Instagram. So like, I can't abandon that. So and it just keeps going up because I got introduced to Threads, and I wasn't going to get on Threads, but Threads is really easy.
Really? And I'm still really resistant because I tend to be more of I really like the photo focused visual posting methods. So,
but you still on Threads can do photos, which I didn't know.
You can. I didn't either. I thought it was literally just text. Okay. Well,
and there's book threads and author threads, which I didn't know either. So I discovered that last week. So anyway, we're live. Just chatting. If you're just joining us now, or you're watching this later, I'm Kristen with Bookish Pen Pals, and I'm here with my buddy Emily. We've been talking for now, I don't know, a year and a half, maybe longer.
Something like that. Yeah.
So Emily is the author of Riff Rider and her new book, Soulseeker, and Guardian, and she's got other projects going on, and she's got this awesome website, and you could buy bookmarks and all kinds of cool stuff on there.
Got my fingers and everything.
I've been trying to stay clear because I have this obsession. I mean, this has now exploded to like 500 plus books in this room.
Man, if my office wasn't such a mess behind here, I would show you similar stuff.
Well, I started organizing, and I'm like, okay. But I move all the books I read to the living room. So I'm like, where is all my stuff? So Riff Rider's out there.
So they're pretty ones and the ones that you've read.
Yeah, and, the
I
ones that
get
I'm
that.
like, "Oh, I own that. Oh, I own that. I need to read that.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, there's
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
books." It's craziness. As I went to a little library today and got more out of there. Anyway, so let's talk about Soulseeker because there is a part in here that I absolutely love it. Well, why don't you tell us about it for those people who are watching that have not read it? And they should read it because it's great. And I just,
Thank you.
this whole series is so fun. And I love that it's fantasy in a way that's this big adventure, but there's nothing like gory violent, even though there's like stuff going on and there's no like
Yeah.
extra spicy. And I love that.
Mhm.
So tell us about
Yeah.
Soulseeker.
Yep. So Soulseeker is the second book in my Fall of the Enclave series, which is a young adult fantasy, urban fantasy with a pretty big cast of LGBTQ characters, which is lovely. They start off in a familiar world and quickly get whisked away into a portal into a magical world. Book 2 is an extension of the story going on in Rift Rider. If you finished Rift Rider, right on the very last page, it finished with them finally getting to go back to the world that they got sucked out of and fought so hard to get back to. It literally ended with Finn going, "Mom, I'm home," and Soulseeker picks up right the second after he walks through the door, explaining what happened to his mom, has Monica in tow, so they get a little bit of a reprieve back in the mortal world. But unfortunately, it doesn't last very long when some stuff goes down and Rowan infiltrates Maul's tower and basically is like, "Guess what I've got?" And it's not good for anybody. So,
No, and it just gets worse as it goes on. And I'm like, what
yeah,
is it?
yeah.
No, no,
And
but
there was a lot of stuff that happened in this book that so fun fact, when I was writing Rift Rider, I don't know if you guys remember, but there's a little scene right at the beginning of Rift Rider where Monica's like talking to Finn. They're walking down the beach. I think it's when they're having ice cream. And he's like, "Oh, what do you do?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm in artifacts.
Mhm.
And he's like, "Oh, I've got this really weird necklace. Could you tell me if it's worth anything?" And when I wrote that scene of Rift Rider, I knew right then how Soulseeker was going to end. I knew what he had and I knew what he was going to do with it right from the beginning. And I got to tell you, it was killing me to get through book 2 to get to the end of what happens there, because I knew that a book and a book and 3/4
Yeah.
before, and I'm just like, oh no. Being the only one with this information, it drives you nuts. And now all of you get to just be
Yeah,
sorry
and, like, start
advance.
connecting everything, like,
Mm-hmm.
I really love that because I was like, oh, and man, is his mom mad, and, well, she's worried, and then she's mad, and then she's worried again, and, then she banishes him off to go see his grandpa, and I'm like, "Oh, he's gonna be mad too."
Yeah.
But I love those scenes because we've talked about, like, Finn's, innocence, and you really see that in his interaction with his mom because you think that he's like this little kid and he's not.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just gone through this whole huge adventure in Rift Rider.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not a little kid. And
I
yet
know.
he's put back in that home situation where you really see how like
Mm-hmm.
good hearted and kind hearted he is. Cause like you don't get a whole lot of that sometimes in fantasy.
Yeah.
So
And
it's really refreshing.
I'm so glad to hear
Yeah.
that. I know that some people told me that because of that aspect of his personality, Finn read a little young, which honestly, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with. I think sometimes
No.
there is that, I think there is that purity to innocence that reads that way sometimes. But I also think that he's got a really interesting duality, even right from the first and second books. There's such opportunities for growth because even though he has that kind heart and he has that, innocence and curiosity about the world and everything, he has a really interesting moment at the beginning of Soulseeker where he's gone through this big journey. He's literally played a huge role in stepping in and saving our main character, Monica, when she goes off to the island.
Yep.
and is basically the, you know, one of the main heroes of that first initial conflict, and has come back from that stronger. And, you know, going back to his mom immediately reverts him back to that kind of almost instinctual way of being, because she's so protective and overbearing that it kind of forces him into this little, you know, shell of what she wants him to be. People always have expectations of us that can sometimes shape who we are, whether we mean it to or not. And even though his mom wants what's best for him, she's kind of overbearing. And so that confrontation with his mom at the beginning of Soulseeker really gives him this beautiful opportunity to stand up to her and be like, hey, I'm my own person now. I've gone. It's really hard for him not being able to tell all of the things that he's done and been through, because she would be so proud of him if she knew, and he just can't say anything yet. And it's just like, I'm so proud of my baby boy for standing up to her.
Well, and that's hard. It's hard because we see this happen all the time in life. We have friends that way, family that way, like, and you tend to turn into that kid for your family sometimes, because you don't want to let them down or worry them or whatever. And so seeing that, like, is, I was like, oh, that's why he's got this big, huge heart, you know. And it was nice that his mom finally, like, was like, okay, you got to do what you got to do, kind of thing. I don't know if she would have done that if she knows what happens at the end. I think she'd grab him by his ear and go, you know.
No comment.
But honestly, like, adventure happens that way, right? Because as moms, like, we're super protective, and even of my students, I do that, you know, like, I'm always watching out for them. And, you know, and it's interesting to see in Soulseeker the relationship between Monica and Finn, because he's like, I'm going to do this. I can do this. And she's kind of like, but I don't want you to do this. And he's like, but I'm going to do it. And she's still like, but you're not going to do it. This is dangerous. Well, he already knows it's dangerous. You know, so she's almost like this mother figure that she's kind of stepped in, and he's like not having it, you know?
Right.
So what I really enjoyed in this one, and it helped me a ton, and I loved Rift Rider and I whipped right through it, but I love that you break down all the realms. And then you even break down, like, everything, like, what's the symbolism, and that made it all kind of click, which I thought was pretty great, because I was like, oh, this is where we're going. And then, because I have read Guardian, I was like, oh, wait a minute, we're gonna get some tie-ins soon, because there's the angel realm. But I have to tell you, I also really want, and I hope to God you're going to do a book about the Abyss of Souls. Because there's got to be some cool beasts in there and bad stuff. And then I want you to do one about the world where demons live.
Book 3 and 4.
Oh, yay. Because, I mean, well, we can't talk about the end of Soulseeker, but
no, we can't.
Thank goodness you're going to that realm. But I was like, wait a minute, I want to know more about this whole abyss thing, because,
so,
you know, not everything is as it seems.
So the with the realms, I kind of have it divided, because again, between all of the things that I'm working on, this series and the Guardian series, the overarching property, I guess, is called the Seven Realms, Seven Realms universe, because even though all the characters are different, even though the plots are different, anything that occurs within this world of realms is, you know, has those tie-ins. And I like when people do that, and I want people to look for those Easter eggs, and I'm really excited to see what people find, because even though not every story I'm going to write within this universe is going to be really connected, there are going to be little things that are just like, oh my gosh, it's a whole nother facet of, like, it was mentioned briefly in this other story and you didn't think much of it, but then it has its own moment, which is really cool. I also want to talk a little bit about, we had talked about Finn being innocent and being selfless, and without going too deeply into the spoilery thing, I I don't know that I talked about it too deeply in Guardian because I was still kind of figuring some of that stuff out when I was writing that. But when I started what was meant to be the second Guardian book before Rift Rider was like, hey, guess what? We're doing this first. Charged in there, and we did the entire other series before I got back to it. There are a lot of overlapping themes too. And one of the biggest themes, you know, people always ask you, what are your books about? And someone once said something where I don't remember exactly how the conversation went, but it really stuck with me about how they didn't tell you like the blurb on the back or the characters or the plot or anything. They were like, this book is about courage. This book is about, you know, and that's what I really have taken with me into writing the Seven Realms universe books. Every book that's in this series, whether it's super connected or not, is about selflessness and is about finding a balance between, you know, taking care of yourself and those you love, and also trying to make the world a better place. Because, you know, being selfless does not necessarily mean entirely abandoning what you need to do for you, but it's about finding an inner strength to stand up and to help people when, you know, when the time calls for it. And in so doing, you know, makes everything better because it's, you know, striking a better balance. So, as you go through both this series and the next, you'll see that theme popping up more and more and more, and especially in the ending of this one. So yeah, I'm just really excited to show you guys even more of where that goes, because that's something that's resonated with me throughout everything I've worked on with these so far.
So I was going to say, as you were saying, I was like, oh, this theme is selflessness in this book. Like I already, you know, because you see it with Finn, you know, like it's a no brainer for him. And I think that's, you know, we teach kids like be a upstander, not a bystander. Same kind of thing, you know, where you kind of have to take that leap, even if you're afraid, and be brave and do the right thing anyway. And then learn from it. And there's a whole bunch of growth for all of the characters and all, you know, there really is. And Finn's is huge. And Monica's so worried about everything else that she sometimes forgets that's huge growth has happened. And he's kind of a badass too, you know? As infuriating as the end was, you know? And there's just some sweet moments with characters, and I really love that, because you know, there's so many books out there that are like, I think there's a lot to learn from, and there's even more to learn from in this series. So I can't wait to see what happens with what's coming next. And I'm like, oh, I want to see a book about that. Like I even have little asterisks, you know.
Like, I love that.
I folded big pages because I was like, wait, and like, you know, I like to make parallels with the rest of the world and what's happening in it. And honestly, I'm like, okay, so who can we compare Rowan to? And, you know, the world around us right now, because not a nice guy. And, you know, and then, you know, Maul gets, you know, I feel like manipulated, even though he's supposed to be this big, huge warlord kind of guy. And I'm like, what is happening with you? How did that happen? Like, that's fun with epic adventure, because like, this seems like epic adventure, right?
But it still brings you into it from a place of like, you don't need to know anything.
Right. Like, if you didn't read Rift Rider, it's okay to still read Soulseeker without it. You need to read it in order. You do, because then you get a better understanding of the worlds. But if somebody found this like in a little library and was like, oh, what's this about? You could read book 2 in that way, and you'd still fall in love with the characters. Then you go back and get book 1 and then Guardian, you know, and I can't wait for book 3. So when is book 3 coming out?
TBD. So this was originally meant to be a trilogy. Because of the way book 3 ends up being structured, there is, how do I word this without giving things away? There is going to be some split POVs going on, some alternating.
Oh.
There's two different stories that are going to be going on in book 3. And so each of the stories really only got half the screen time, if you will, that they would have if they were happening together. So because of that, book 3 is now book 3 and 4. And book 3 and 4, because they are by nature two parts of, I'm not treating them as part 1 and part 2. They are book 3 and 4, but the way the structure is, they're really more meant to go together. And so my book 3 just got done with my editor, and she said, you can't release this until book 4 is done. Like, people are going to be mad if you put this out and they can't immediately go to book 4. So you got to make sure that book 4 is done. And book 4 does need some pretty major rewrites, which is what I'm working on now. And so book 3 will come out when book 4 is rewritten and the draft is done and on its way to on its way to my editor, and I'm comfortable about like what I have, because
it's exciting.
So I don't know yet. I had really hoped, so I had originally planned every 6 months. I had really hoped to have book 3 Deathbringer, if that tells you anything, done and ready to release in the fall, but it just doesn't look like it's going to happen. So the new very loose goal is maybe the end of the year, but we'll see. There's a lot of stuff going on right now.
So exciting.
You'll know when I'm getting close, because I'll start to do an actual cover reveal. I've done a couple of little teasers in my newsletter for the Deathbringer cover, because it's so pretty. It's probably my favorite cover of the series. Awesome. Honestly, and it's funny because I thought I was gonna like it the least, because so my original plan for the covers was going to be green, blue, red, yellow. But when I had the cover for Deathbringer designed, it has some spooky vibes, and it kind of came off really horror feeling, and it wasn't working for what we were trying to do with it. So we ended up making it largely orange. And I'm not a big fan of orange, so I kind of didn't think I'd like it, but it's really grown on me, and it's really cool. And I want to show it to you. But I can't show it to you. I don't do a cover reveal until I have a release date planned. Even if it's a few months in advance of said release date, I don't do a cover reveal until I've got a release date planned. So when you start seeing cover reveal stuff going up, that's when you can start getting excited.
And it's so fun because you're like, here's a little corner. And I'm like, well, what corner is that?
Right. Well, the little sneak peek that I gave to my July newsletter was not a corner. It was a sliver of this section of the book. So you got some actual substance. Because I did kind of feel guilty doing just like an outside corner, because it's like, it's the same, like it's basically like this whole part and this whole part is the same except for the words and the color. So like it felt a little bit like anticlimactic so I actually gave some substance, but I just, because I'm so darned excited, I just want to show it to you guys and show you how pretty it is. But I know that I can't do that until it's ready to go. So
that's so fun. And you've been busy because you've been doing book signings and events. And so what's new in the merch world?
Nothing. Because I've been doing book signings. I haven't been making merch. I also have started working on a super secret project that's related to Guardian, that isn't book 2 and isn't the prequel. But just know that it's in the same, that side of the universe. And Jasper wasn't the only fallen angel, so. But I've been working on that a little bit. So I've actually been doing some character art for that, because that's part of my creative process. But I just, between everything that's been going on, there's not any new merch at the moment. But I'm really trying to buckle down and work on writing, because I'm really, my priority right now is rewrites for book 4, and rewrites are just. I don't enjoy that part of the process. So that's my focus, is trying to really buckle down, which is hard because it's less stuff to show you guys. It's a lot harder to show you what I've been working on when it's rewrites and edits and just actual writing and stuff. But like,
and
Yeah.
it
It'll
stinks when the
probably be quiet for a bit.
real world creeps in. You
Right.
know,
Yep.
like
No,
I
for
think
sure.
sometimes people forget that indie authors often have day jobs. They have all these
Mm-hmm.
other obligations, and honestly, like even like every author has that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm as I delve into this whole world of publishing and publicists and all this stuff, and most authors have day jobs. Even the
100%.
ones that
Yeah.
have sold 35 million copies of things, you know, but
Mm-hmm.
I always love my indie authors. Like they're my favorite. And
Oh,
I was thinking about it today. I'm like, I think you were the first indie author that I like messaged and was like, hey,
really?
I saw the arc. I saw the arc
Uh-huh.
thing go up and I was like, oh, I want that. Because you had
Uh-huh.
been like teasing Riff Rider for so long. And then Mike Green's books were the next ones, but I have this soft
Mm-hmm.
spot for indie authors,
Yeah.
especially if they have LGBTQ, characters in them
Yep.
because we
Yep.
need more of those, especially with what's
For
going on in the
sure.
world. I got on TikTok last night of all things, and I couldn't sleep. It was like 2 a.m. and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh wait, there's a person with a book,
Right.
and
Well, and
and so yeah, and they're indie
yeah.
author, like 18 years old, like published
Ah,
first book
love
and
that.
was first TikTok live at like midnight on the
Oh
East
my
Coast. And I
gosh.
was like,
That's
okay, you
amazing.
got 10 people on. I'm going to hang out for a while. Book sounded amazing.
Yeah.
I love the indie
Ah,
author thing. Like
right.
you just got to push them, because
Yeah.
it's so important.
Yeah,
So,
no, I totally agree. And I love that you feel that way because I mean, on the one hand, it's really cool that it's much more accessible to be published nowadays. But on the other
mhm,
hand, it's much harder to actually get seen and get out there because it is so much easier to
right.
actually publish. It's so easy to get buried, even when you're posting constantly. Sometimes
Oh
it
yeah.
feels like it doesn't make a difference, even though it
Yeah.
does. It's not, it's one of those things that it's a baby steps. It doesn't happen overnight. And it really does, years and
Yeah.
years and years of consistency and doing it every day and every week and all the things. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's really important, to have that community and people like you who are so awesome that support, indie
No.
authors. We really appreciate it. So I feel so honored to be your
Um,
first one. That's so cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think so. I was thinking about it because, like, I know I read Riff Rider and then Winter Set
Mhm.
Hollow and then Mike Breen's book. Like, they were all around the same time, but I had been like watching for Riff Rider for a while, and then I read the arc, and
Mhm.
I don't know, things just like went off from there, and you know. So now I'm
I'm so
like,
excited.
okay, so book two is done now. Like, come on,
Yeah. Right? I know. I
the
was so
ending.
excited. I thought I was gonna have it all together. I was like,
I know,
release schedule, and then just stuff happened. And I'm just
but
like, oh man.
but that's
But I
also
wanna
like part of the process, and when
Mhm.
you are, as an indie author, have control over timelines and making the
Exactly.
book the best way and the way you want it,
Mhm.
that that in itself is worth, I think, the indie
Well,
process because you have more
and it's
control over things.
100%. And it's so important to me to make sure that I'm putting out a book that I am proud of every single time I do it. And it's really
Yeah,
easy to, after you've done a couple to, get lazy or lax or whatever. But I already, my very first book that I published when I was 15
hmm,
will always stay with me because even though it's not a book that I was proud of the experience, not necessarily the
right.
book that I put out, but of the having done it. But the thing that I will always take with me from doing that is that it is so important to me at my core to put out things that I am proud of and that I believe in and that I feel are the best versions of themselves. And while at some point you do have to get out of your own way with the perfectionism to make sure that it doesn't take, a decade like it did to take me to publish again. But again, it's about striking that balance. But I will never put something out that I don't feel like is done, which is why, even though I thought I had everything together for book 3 and book 4, and then finding out how major the rewrites are going to need to be for book 4, is
Right.
because I want to make sure that it is ready for you guys. It's the wrap up of this big series. I've set all this time, I've spent all this time setting it up, all of the, time with the characters, getting to know them, each of their little individual arcs that we take time to go through, and all their own growth, and everything interwoven so carefully, not only across this series, but across all of, Guardian too. Like, it's so important for this to be done well, done correctly, and done right. And I want a series ending that's going to leave you guys, just feeling, oh my gosh, and that's, even though I'm super bummed that it's going to take longer than I had originally planned, it is more important for me and for you guys, for me to do it correctly before, rather than just rushing into putting out what I had originally.
Yeah. So there'll be 4 books now instead of 2.
There will be 4. Yes. And it's actually really beautiful. So at one point, there were going to be 3 of the Guardian books, Guardian book 2, and then the prequel, and then 4 Rift Rider series books. So 7 books in the 7 Realm universe. So that's really pretty. But there are more now, between the new Guardian project, and then there's some novellas. There's going to be a novella about Monica and Monroe's childhood a little bit, and leading up to everything that happened when they got taken by the Enclave and how they got out of that. And then there's going to be another little novella about some other characters that are referenced in book 3, but actually belong more on the Guardian side. So just like I said, beautiful, interwoven things. There's going to be lots of things for this universe, I think.
So lovely. What's next after this universe? Do you have any ideas yet? Have you started thinking about it?
I have.
I knew it.
I actually have. So I have a ton of partially written, couple of pages. Whenever I get an idea, I put it down in my hard drive. Right. But it's hard. I want to tell you guys about them, but on the one hand, I know it's going to be so long before I get to it, and on the other hand, I don't want anybody else to maybe be inspired by those things. But I've got something that's maybe more sci-fi fantasy. Ooh. I've got something that's a fairy tale retelling with some gender bent stuff going on. Maybe a trans character.
Nice
fairy tale thing. So. I've got some fun ideas down the road for outside of this universe that I'm really excited for. So, yeah.
Nice. What's the last book you read? Have you had time? I know
super busy. I just finished the Book of Doors today, actually.
Oh, I have that.
Yeah.
So I was on a book ban. Aren't I always on a book ban? And I saw that and I was like, I have to have this book.
Yeah. Right? Well, it gave me this is going to sound really weird, but when you actually read it, you'll understand. So when I started reading it, now this vibe didn't carry all the way through the Book of Doors, but the very first couple of chapters of the Book of Doors felt very like the Midnight Library with a sprinkle of Guardian. It felt, it had the Cass and Joe vibes with her best friend. They worked in a bookstore. There's some magic happening. It felt very there was something familiar about it. When I started it, that really pulled me in, and I was like, oh, this is fun. And it does have a lot of Addie LaRue type vibes to it. It's got, there is some time travel, back and forth jumping stuff, which I don't usually get into because it tends to be a little bit more than my brain can handle. Says the person who has to interconnect everything. But no, there were seeing everything wrap back around. Once I knew what they were doing, I'm just like, oh, where is this going to come in? Where is this going to come in? Right. And, there were some parts of it that I don't know that I fully got. And I don't know if it's because they were plot holes on accident, on purpose, or if I just didn't personally get it. But the overall effect of the story was really thought-provoking. It was really intriguing. And it had that really big brain kind of feeling of again, the Midnight Library comes to mind with just that things are so much bigger than they seem feeling. And I love books that do that to me. Or another one that I read recently that did that was called Reverie. And it was about going into people's reveries. Have you read that one?
No, but that one I don't own it yet, but it is on my you need to buy it list.
Yes. Recommend. That was very good. And then another one that I read recently that I was really surprised how much I liked actually was Citadel. It's a really pretty blue cover, and it's a sci-fi fantasy, and it's got a main character who's nonverbal on the spectrum. And it's written from a time period where they didn't necessarily have a word or, you know, a way to describe people like that. But given those constraints, I think it was really interesting and creative. And like I've been in a little bit of a reading rut lately, partly because of not having time and partly because of just I really feel like the more books you read, the more it's like, you feel like you read this before. Because everything is a play on something else. And with Citadel, I really felt like, wow, there is genuinely nothing that I've read like this, done this way. And it kind of stuck with me. It's been several months now. And, you know, the ones I read so many books so quickly most of the time that the ones that I can name off after it's been a couple of months, they were probably the good ones.
Same. I have to go back and look at my book more, and I'm like, what did I read this year? Because I read 40 books, and I don't know what they were but top 10, you know, I start.
Yeah, no, them. It's like I couldn't tell you anything about what it was about, but I can tell you the vibes.
I like that. The vibes are good.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I lost my train of thought because I was like, I have one more question. That's okay, because I love how we just, you know, chit chat.
Tell me a little. I'm dying to know. There were some new characters in Soulseeker. Tell me how you felt about Granddad.
So I thought he was the sweetest man, and I love that he has this fried fish thing. And
he's a little Southern, like, yeah,
and I wasn't expecting that for some reason. And I was like, well, I want to go to dinner there, and even though he was so worried about Finn and you know, like, don't ever do that to your mom, he's like, come on in, Monica, and like, family should be that way. And so I was 100%. Like, man, I miss my grandparents like that. And I don't remember my grandpa ever cooking for me, but my mom tells me that he used to cook for them. And so I loved that character. And it would be cool if he shows up as, you know, I don't know, I can't give it away. I have some ideas. Because he doesn't really know what's, you know, like
we'll have to talk later.
Yeah, because there's some potential there, you know.
Did you?
The other thing I want to tell you, another part that I really thought was sweet was with Davi and Finn. That was
another scene that I knew was going to happen, like pretty much as soon as they started having interactions at the end of book one. Like, so funny aside, Davi was actually meant to be a one scene unnamed character, throwaway character. He was supposed to show up in the market and nothing else. And the moment him and Finn started having that flirty banter, and I was just like, okay.
It wouldn't be the same if he wasn't in there. It wouldn't be the same at all.
No, I really liked that whole interaction with that scene and Finn just being as real and genuine with it as he was. Like, I was so scared because I knew what I wanted that scene to be in my head, and I was so scared of doing it wrong or, you know, offending somebody, because that's a really delicate thing with powers like that, to be able to be, you know, I'm very vague because I don't want to give it away, but but you know, to just be like, be who you are meant to be. Don't be who you think I want you to be. And that was just like, I loved that. That was I was
too. Me too. I was like, "Oh, I need to go back and read that again."
Right. Yeah. No, I
Let's
love
tab that. Let's dog ear that page too.
right. Oh, they were so sweet. But
Yeah,
yeah.
I just like the care. I don't know. You know, and I know Celine was going to be in this one because you know she's like, and I have a feeling that she's going to be back for the, you know, but
Mhm.
like I love that family, like feel good, people love each other
Mhm.
because the world is an icky place sometimes. And so when we get lost in books, you know, where you're on this adventure, it's good to see that because it gives you that nostalgia feeling, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
It's,
You're
yeah,
safe here. And that's, you know, while I have an overarching theme for this universe, I have themes within the series too themselves, and this series
right.
really is like my found family. I mean, right
Hmm.
there, right at the very front of the book, you know, my dedication is
Yep.
literally, this book is for my family. You know who you are.
Yeah.
And it's got that really beautiful quote in there by Maya Angelou that I love, which is, "Family isn't always blood. It's the people in your life who want you in theirs, the ones who would accept you for who you are, the ones who would do anything to see you smile, and who love you no matter what." And that's a really
Yeah.
with all of my characters, you know, it really is about, you know, they lost, you know, a lot of them have lost a lot of their family and
They have.
gone forward by finding others. Like, I mean, Granddad is a good example of that because he's not even blood related to Finn.
Right.
But he's like, "You're mine anyway." And also, he
Yeah.
sings show tunes, and you just can't not love
Yeah.
that. Did you
Yeah.
catch that little Easter egg? Are you a show tunes person?
I'm not.
No.
But that whole like that whole thing, and Monica is so uncomfortable with some of that because she's
Yeah,
missing
she's never
that,
had
and she no, and she's missing it so much. She's like, "No, I can't even experience it."
that.
And
Right.
that's something that I think a lot of people feel, and
Exactly.
it's okay to feel that way. Work through it because the end result
Mhm.
of it is such a good feeling, and it's
Exactly.
hard to work through those things, but you're better off in the end, right? And I want some fish. I want some fish.
Right? And some
I'd take
peach
that.
pie. I had
Yeah,
some
oh, and the
splendid peach
pie.
pie lately, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, that's
Uh,
so sweet." Well,
but yeah.
I
But yeah,
I'm
if any of you go through Soulseeker and get to that scene where Granddad is in there singing show tunes, he made up different words, but if you sing it out loud, it's to the tune of an existing like
okay.
tune from a musical. If I really I'm dying for somebody to figure out what song it is because I feel like it's really obvious, and I was singing it as I was typing it, being like,
Okay.
so I'm please somebody find it, somebody guess what that song is, tell me what show it's
Yeah,
from an
I
actual like
stink at
Broadway
that.
musical.
I stink with all of those things. Nicole tells me all the time. She's like, "Who's this?" And I'm like, "Okay, it's Emily Nenny." And then she'll play something else for me, and I'm like, "Oh, that's Dolly Parton." And she's like, "Are you kidding? That's not Dolly. That's." And I'm like, "I am awful with that. Like, I'll know all the words, have no idea who sings it. I might not actually know all the words when I think I
Mhm.
do. But I'll go, "Oh, that sounds familiar. I know that."
Mhm.
And then I have to use SoundHound for some of that stuff. So, just like
Yeah.
characters. Oh, have I read that book before? This sounds really familiar. Oh, I think I have. And then I'm like, why
Right?
did wait?
You know what?
But
I totally get it. While I have I can't necessarily relate on the music thing because husband and I actually used to do trivia, and the one round that I was always the best at was
mm,
music. I have that similar brain for media where like I cannot watch a TV show if it's got more than a 6 month break. Like if we're waiting for a new season to
right.
come out, I have to
Yeah.
wait till it's out because I will forget. I'll have to completely start over. Because again, no plot, just vibes, which is why
Yeah.
I loved Supernatural, could never finish it. My attention span
Yeah.
is not that long.
Yeah. Me too. And there's season after season, and I'm like, I don't remember what
Right?
happened
There's
last
so
season.
much. Right. Even
Except for
honestly,
Bridgerton.
even watching it straight through, I'm just like, there's so much content that
Yeah.
I've got a rolling maybe about 5 seasons worth of stuff staying up there, and
Yeah.
anything before that is all soup.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah.
Uh, totally. Well, thank you so much for coming on again. I always love having you here. So it'll be fun as we
Thank
get to book
you.
3 and book 4 to figure out
Mhm.
how it all ties in together. And then you're going to have to come up with some huge game again where we can get more people playing bingo. Because boy, I stunk at that and I need to redeem myself because I'm like, what is this emoji?
Right.
That was so
Well,
much fun
I
though.
would love to do it again, but it is so much work to put together those
Oh,
bingo cards because I
oh
was
yeah.
literally putting like each of those on there by hand on Canva myself. Um,
Oh.
so if we did do it again, and I would be down, but I would need
Yeah.
to know that we had a certain number of people and we'd have to
Oh
cap it at
yeah.
like a certain number for sure. But yeah,
Oh
that was
yeah.
so much fun to host, and I would love if people were
Because
interested in
I
doing
was
that
like,
again or
wait,
something.
wait, it's this. Oh my gosh, somebody already got it. Wait, is it that? No, it can't be that. Where's my book?
Right. Open book quiz.
I'm like, what is that emoji? Oh, it was so fun. And if everybody watching did not know, Emily did this amazing bingo with Riff Rider with emojis and so yeah, I stunk at it, but it was so much fun. I did love it. So yeah. Anyway, so I love having you on, and I can't wait to see what's happening next with Fall of the Enclave. And if you haven't read Soulseeker, you need to because the ending is like, it's good. All right. Thank
Or
you so
bad,
much.
depending on your perspective.
Well, I have a feeling it'll end up okay.
I mean, I don't remember what interview it was, but I was on an interview with someone previously. And I've been very vocal about that. At this point in time, do not ever plan to give you a completely sad ending. If there is something sad that happens at an ending, it's going to be bittersweet, or it's only going to be part of it, or it's
Right.
going to be like, it was bad for this character, but all of these ones got happy endings. It will never be
Right.
100%. Everybody dies. Everything is terrible. You're sad. Go cry. I won't.
Yeah.
I won't ever do that. If I do that, it'll be probably not in this universe for one.
Right.
Will be a huge departure from the kind of stuff that I want to write because I don't
Yeah.
enjoy crying books. Like there's got to be something else in it that redeems it. Like crying a little bit in the middle, but not like we don't leave it that way. Not in this
Yeah.
house.
Yeah. I don't blame you with that. Yeah. I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.
Thanks for having me. Bye.